In this case, the defendant was charged with first-degree murder arising out of the shooting death of a young man during a drive-by shooting. Upon his conviction, the defendant was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The arresting officer testified that he read the defendant his Miranda rights, and the defendant understood them according to the arresting officer and others present. The police proceeded to interrogate the defendant for approximately 3 hours. At no time did the defendant invoke his right to remain silent or request a lawyer, which would have immediately ended the interrogation by the police. The defendant did not claim that the police threatened or injured him, or that he was fearful during the interrogation. Towards the end of the interrogation, the defendant answered yes, when asked if he prayed to God to forgive him for the shooting. At trial, the defendant moved to suppress that statement. The lower court held that by answering the question, it constituted a statement after being given his Miranda rights, whereby he waived those rights. Therefore, the statement was admissible in evidence against him at trial. How would you decide this case? Was the fact that the defendant was silent during the first 2 hours and 45 minutes of a 3-hour interrogation sufficient to invoke his right to remain silent under Miranda? We'll be back in a moment with the answer to that question. Was the fact that the defendant was silent during the first 2 hours and 45 minutes of a 3-hour interrogation sufficient to invoke his right to remain silent under Miranda? No, according to the United States Supreme Court. Although the defendant did not speak for approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes during an interrogation, but then responded to the officer's questions, constituted a waiver of his right to remain silent. This case is about a suspect's Miranda rights under the landmark case Miranda v. Arizona, which requires that at time of arrest, the suspect be advised of his right to remain silent, his right to legal counsel, and that anything he says may be held against him. The police are not required to obtain a waiver, either verbally or in writing, of a defendant's right to remain silent under Miranda before commencing interrogation. The Miranda rule and its requirements are met if a suspect receives adequate Miranda warnings, understands them, and has an opportunity to invoke the right before he gives any answers or admissions. In the present case, the suspect did not invoke his rights under Miranda during the 3-hour interrogation. The evidence further demonstrated that the suspect was not coerced, nor was he otherwise threatened by the police officers. During the course of the 3-hour interrogation, at no time did the defendant express his wish to remain silent, nor did he request counsel. Thus, the statement given by the defendant during the interrogation was admissible, held the court. Remember, it's a matter of law.